Spread the fire. Welcome to SMWX, and I'm with the EFF's National Elections Coordinator, Vuyani Pambo. Bro.
Yeah. No,
good to see you.
Sure,
thanks so much for joining us on SMWX.
Thank you for having us.
You know, what's interesting for me is that I know you from the activism space. I think Fees Must Fall was obviously a really important moment in our country, but also for you as an activist. And now you've made the jump into the formal political space. You've been coordinating the EFF's national campaign. What was your thinking behind moving from an activist space, albeit connected to the EFF, into a more formal political space as one of the younger voices in South African politics right now?
Sure. Look, I mean, Sizwe, I'm still an activist. I'll remain an activist for as long as I live. But the reality is this, that the EFF is distinct in that way, is that the EFF is filled with activists. We don't have politicians. I don't think that we can fully say we're politicians. We're activists. That's why we're actively involved in communities. We are always campaigning, whether it's around land, or corruption. You will find us at the picket line. And this is the difference between an activist and a politician. We're not arrivalists. We don't arrive at events. We make the thing happen. So we are grounded like that. So there isn't much of a shift in as far as my functionality is concerned. I remain the same activist that I was. The difference is that I'm learning, how an organization is ran, and this is an experience that no money can buy. But equally, it's an experience that very few young people get. So I'm highly appreciative of it. But equally, it just demonstrates what the EFF is about. It's really interested in building young people. It's really interested in making sure that the future is firmly, cemented with the youth. Because why would you cement it with older people if the inheritors are the youth? But also we're learning, to grow. That even with activism, there needs to be some sense of being organized. With Fees Must Fall, as one of the participants.
What have the differences been? Between, because that's Fees Must Fall was spontaneous. It was
absolutely.
We move. There's not necessarily even a plan for the day. Absolutely. Whereas I'm sure where you are now, it's like it has to be more rigid.
Sure. Look, I mean, with Fees Must Fall, it was a loose thing, and no one spoke from a point of experience, and we always were experimenting, right?
Sure.
With the EFF, it's clear. There's a plan. There's a thought around it, and in as much as we may have spontaneity, you do have a sense of a wealth of experience from the leadership. We are led by the commander-in-chief, who has a wealth of experience when it comes to the political scene, and you can never go wrong with someone like that. You can never go wrong with someone who's constantly available in as far as guidance is concerned. I mean, a lot of people say, what experience do you have? You don't come from any political party. You're straight from the picket line.
You're the youngest.
You're the youngest. Participating in that structure. So. How is it possible? And the truth is that you are essentially covered by or surrounded by people who know the game, who know how to do this thing. And when we say who know, it's not people who are unable to learn or relearn or reimagine. So you get shocked sometimes by people who say, no, but we used to do it like this. What if we do it like this?
What kind of things have you learned? I'm just interested because I see the CIC as a brilliant political strategist. Yeah. What kind of things have you learned behind the scenes as you've from the leadership that you've been like, wow, okay, I didn't realize it worked like that?
Look, there's something that is very powerful. It's the first thing would be to first conquer the self. And President is amazing in that. And what I mean by conquer the self is to know that this needs to be done. There are a lot of distracting things around me, whether it's parties, whether it's falling asleep on a couch, watching movies, or whatever the case may be. Is to always know that those things will always be there.
Sure.
But the core and significant thing needs to be done for the other things to happen. So, we work around the clock, and to always be available.
Yeah.
President is always available. And you can imagine running an organization like the EFF, third biggest political party, and still be available as the president. So who am I? I need to also be available to be able to communicate, make sense, and make sure that the person you're communicating to understands exactly what you're saying to them, and give them a chance to ask if they don't understand. It's something that most of us in politics don't give an opportunity to. But equally, when you go and speak to a mass of people, you're able to say to them, come, let's engage. And that's something that you don't normally see with politicians. And that's an activist, someone who becomes one with the people. So we're learning that even if we operate at a level that is that high, nothing should ever change. That which attracted us or brought us to where we are should always, keep us, at a level where we're amongst the people.
So let's talk about some of the issues that you've been intimately involved in, because we can talk about what does the EFF manifesto say on this, right? But you were a central part of Fees Must Fall. And since that moment, we've seen some change on the state policy level, but we've also seen a reversion to, especially earlier this year, a militarized campus environment if students say anything. How do you feel right now about the question of free education, where we are after that Fees Must Fall moment, and where do you think we need to go after this election on that specific question?
Well, look, I think there was sort of a trick played on students because we just lost one of our own in KZN, Lungisima Tonsela. After the declaration of free, quality, decolonized, or after the declaration of free education, a couple of months later or a year later, you have someone, an activist, dying for the demand for free, quality, decolonized. Now that indicates that there isn't free education in South Africa, because if there was, no one would still be in prison for it, which is Kayakagation. No one would have died for free, education. So we're essentially in a situation where someone has declared free education, but we don't have the lived experience of free education. It's like this freedom that we speak of. This freedom is for the few, mostly whites. It's a declared, and this government leads us by declaration. It's a declared, freedom, but it's not a lived experience. We're told, they can even juxtapose and say, in the past this was the case. Now, you are better because of this. When someone has to explain that you're free, then you must know that you're not free, because it's a lived experience. We revolt precisely because this is uncomfortable with us, and therefore we take action. But in this case, with free education, there isn't free education, they are just reforms. They twigged there and there to fool us. So it's a cosmetic exercise. The president came out and declared free education at the ANC conference, and then it was that. But there was no plan with it, right? So that's why, as the EFF, post the 8th of May, we're going to roll out free education. And there needs to be a political will, which is obviously lacking.
How's it? Fine, thanks. How's it?
Fine, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So on the question of freedom, it's actually been quite surprising to me, given that President Ramaphosa is the face of the ANC campaign, that Marikana actually hasn't been a bigger issue on the media agenda.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that question, and is there maybe a strategy after the election to press harder on that issue, say in Parliament?
Look, Sizwe, it's a painful one. It's a painful one. Imagine the children of Pambo, the children of the slain mine workers, how they feel having to write the name. At school they ask you who is the South African president, and you have to write, Sir Ramaphosa, who's the same person who wrote the email that your father must be shot dead. It's a difficult thing. It's unbelievable. I think, it's something that you would read in a novel, maybe, but to live it is something else. And it's consistent. We had Marikana, now we're seeing that, the disbandment of AMCU. This is not all coincidence. This is a proper plan to re-entrench capitalism in South Africa. Not that it wasn't there, but to further solidify it. And the workers are obviously the first people to be, annihilated. And with Marikana, have you ever seen a formal government program that commemorates Marikana as they do with 1976?
To go every year.
Absolutely, right? And this is, it's not even, we can't even play political football with it. It's painful. It really arrests one from speaking, because how is it possible? The people who claim to have fought for this country, the people who have fought against the very tactics that they are now using, are now the custodians of those tactics. So we're not going to sleep on it. We're not going to sleep on it. We're going to continue reminding them. That's why every moment, every event and occasion that we find, and it doesn't have to be with good taste, or maybe put it in a romantic way with some innuendo. We have to say it straight, that the ANC government killed people in Marikana, and that the ANC president, as it stands, was instrumental in the execution of that 34 mine workers. But also, I also, going further, I hold us accountable as South Africans. We can't keep quiet. It's 34 miners now, 50 later, and eventually we get normalized to the killing of people. People who are demanding 12,500. That 12,500 is not even enough to keep their families together. And they were then framed as criminals so that they are fungible and available to be killed. So we belong to a state that is anti, black people, firstly, but equally anti those who are at the bottom of the bottom.
Bro, as we conclude this, and thanks for your time, I also just wanted to ask on a personal level, like you're on the parliamentary list, you may be heading to parliament depending on what happens. How are you feeling about that as one of the rising voices of a new generation in South African politics? And can we trust that you'll take your radical spirit into parliament or into whatever place you go after this election?
Nothing changes. Anywhere, you know me, everywhere and anywhere where there's injustice, we are going to speak of it. We're just given a bigger platform to express that which we speak of in the corners. But it's important that we find ways to
No doubt.
Okay.
Now the IEC is throwing us out. There's always some bouncer to throw out an EFF party.
There's something always happening, and we can't even finish our interview. But anyway, my brother,
it's been a true honor. All the best after May 8th.
Thank you so much. Sure.
SMWX. No young people are around the decision-making table. Let some new voices come to the fore. Follow us on WhatsApp and catch us live Tuesdays and Thursdays. Out with the old, in with the new. SMWX.